December 31st, 2025. New Year's Eve. The final Raw of the year. A night that should have been about celebration, about reflection, about setting the stage for an incredible 2026. Instead, what the WWE Universe witnessed was nothing short of a war, a brutal, physical, absolutely unforgettable collision between two of the most dominant forces in professional wrestling today. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table, the man who has held WWE in the palm of his hand for years. And Bronn Breaker, the second-generation wrecking ball, the powerhouse who's been destroying everything in his path since arriving on the main roster. But here's the question that had everyone talking for weeks leading up to this match. Can youth and raw power overcome experience and strategic brilliance? Can Bronn Breaker's incredible athleticism and intensity finally be the force that brings down the seemingly unstoppable Roman Reigns? And most intriguingly, what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force on the biggest stage possible? This wasn't just another match. This was a statement. This was about legacy, about dominance, about proving who truly deserves to stand at the top of WWE heading into 2026. And what transpired in that ring on December 31st will be talked about, analyzed, and debated for years to come. But to understand the magnitude of what happened that night, we need to go back. We need to understand how these two titans ended up on a collision course that seemed almost inevitable from the moment Bronn Breakker set foot on Monday Night Raw. Let's rewind to where this all began, because the road to this match was paved with destruction, pride, and the kind of intensity that only comes when two alpha predators find themselves sharing the same territory. Bronn Breakker burst onto the main roster scene like a freight train with no brakes. The son of Rick Steiner, nephew of Scott Steiner, carrying one of the most legendary names in professional wrestling history, but determined to forge his own path, to create his own legacy. From his very first appearance, Breakker made it clear that he wasn't here to be another second-generation wrestler riding on family name recognition. He was here to dominate, to destroy, to prove that he belonged at the absolute top of the card. And dominate he did. Week after week, Bronn Breakker demolished opponents with a ferocity that reminded older fans of his uncle's intensity mixed with his father's technical prowess and his own incredible athleticism. Gorilla press slams that made men twice his size look like children's toys. Spears that could split someone in half. A combination of power, speed, and aggression that WWE hadn't seen since maybe Brock Lesnar in his prime. Breakker wasn't just winning matches, he was making statements. But here's where things got interesting. After 3 months of destroying mid-card competition, after running through every challenger WWE put in front of him, Bronn Breakker did something that caught everyone's attention. During a backstage interview with Kathy Kelly in early December, he was asked about his goals for 2026. His answer was simple, direct, and absolutely explosive. Goals? I've got one goal. Roman Reigns. The tribal chief. The head of the table. The guy everyone's afraid to challenge because they know what happens when you step to him. Well, I'm not afraid. I'm not intimidated. And I'm damn sure not going to wait my turn or pay my dues or whatever corporate nonsense they want to feed me. Roman Reigns is at the top because nobody's been strong enough to knock him off. I am. And I'm going to prove it. The interview went viral within hours. Not because it was particularly shocking, wrestlers call out champions all the time. But because of the conviction in Bronn's voice. This wasn't a character cutting a promo. This was a young, hungry athlete who genuinely believed he could beat Roman Reigns. And in a company where Roman had been booked as virtually unstoppable for years, where beating him cleanly was almost impossible, that kind of confidence was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Roman's response came the following week on SmackDown. The tribal chief was in the ring with Paul Heyman, discussing his dominance, when suddenly Bronn Breakker's face appeared on the Titantron. Roman stopped mid-sentence, his expression shifting from confident to annoyed. Paul Heyman immediately began damage control, dismissing Breakker as just another young superstar who didn't understand how things worked in WWE, who didn't respect the pecking order, who needed to learn his place. But Roman? Roman just stared at that screen with an expression that was hard to read. Was it amusement? Was it irritation? Was it respect? After a long moment, Roman raised his microphone and delivered a response that sent shockwaves through the WWE universe. Bronn Breaker. You want my attention? You got it. You think you're ready to step to the tribal chief? You think you've got what it takes to stand across the ring from me? Fine. New Year's Eve. The last Raw of 2025. You and me. No championship on the line because you haven't earned that yet. But I'll give you the opportunity to prove yourself. I'll give you the chance to see if you're really as good as you think you are. And when I'm done with you, when I've shown you the levels between us, maybe then you'll understand why everyone acknowledges me. The match was set. 3 weeks of build-up. 3 weeks of anticipation. 3 weeks of two massive egos on a collision course. What followed was some of the most intense, personal build-up WWE had seen in years. This wasn't about championships or accomplishments or statistics. This was about respect. This was about pride. This was about two men who genuinely believed they were the best, and only one could prove it. The promos were incredible. Bronn Breaker brought an intensity to his segments that felt fresh and dangerous. He wasn't trying to be cool or funny or clever. He was just being honest about his belief that he could destroy Roman Reigns. He talked about how Roman had become complacent at the top, how years of being protected and booked as unstoppable had made him soft, how the tribal chief character was just a costume hiding a man who'd forgotten what it meant to be truly challenged. Roman Reigns is living off reputation, Bron said during one particularly fiery promo. He's coasting on past achievements. He surrounds himself with the bloodline because he knows he can't handle threats on his own anymore. The guy who was in the Shield, who was part of the most dominant faction in WWE history, that guy would have accepted my challenge one-on-one, no questions asked. But the tribal chief? He needs his cousins, his wise men, his whole entourage just to feel safe. On New Year's Eve, I'm going to expose him. I'm going to show everyone that the Emperor has no clothes. And I'm going to do it by beating him at his own game, in the ring one-on-one, with no excuses. Roman's responses were masterful as always. He didn't need to shout or get overly aggressive. The tribal chief operated with a calm, controlled confidence that was somehow more intimidating than any amount of yelling could be. He'd stand in that ring, Paul Heyman by his side, and methodically dismantle Bron's arguments with the kind of psychological warfare he'd perfected over years at the top. You think you're the first young superstar who thought they could take me down? Roman would say, his voice dripping with condescension. You think you're special because you can do a gorilla press slam? Because you've got a famous last name? I've faced and beaten everyone, Bron. I've beaten legends. I've beaten Hall of Famers. I've beaten guys who were doing this when you were still in diapers. You're impressive, I'll give you that. You've got talent, you've got size, you've got athleticism. But you don't have wisdom. You don't have experience. And you damn sure don't have what it takes to beat me. The mind games escalated. During Bron's matches, Roman would appear at ringside, just watching, studying, taking notes. The psychological pressure was immense. Bron would try to maintain focus on his opponent, but knowing Roman Reigns was analyzing every move, every weakness, every potential opening, it was distracting. And that was exactly the point. Then came the physical confrontations. 2 weeks before New Year's Eve, after Bron had demolished yet another opponent, Roman entered the ring for a face-to-face confrontation. The two men stood nose to nose, neither backing down, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The crowd was absolutely nuclear, chanting for both men, desperate for them to start fighting right there. But Roman, ever the strategic genius, just smiled and walked away, leaving Bron furious and the audience wanting more. The following week, Bron got his revenge. Roman was cutting a promo when Bron's music hit, and the young powerhouse charged the ring. Security tried to stop him, but Breaker plowed through them like they weren't even there. He got in the ring, and for 30 seconds of absolute chaos, the two men went at it. Trading blows, neither getting a clear advantage, before the locker room emptied to separate them. It took 15 superstars to pull them apart, both men screaming at each other, promising violence, guaranteeing that New Year's Eve would be unforgettable. The WWE Universe was split down the middle. Roman loyalists believed in the tribal chief's experience and proven track record. They pointed to his years of dominance, his ability to win the big matches, his strategic brilliance that had kept him on top through multiple championship reigns. Roman was the safe bet, the known quantity, the guy who always found a way to win. But Breaker supporters saw something different. They saw a young, hungry competitor with nothing to lose and everything to prove. They saw raw power that could potentially overwhelm Roman's technical skills. They saw the future challenging the present, and they believed the future was ready to take over. Breaker represented change, evolution, the next generation stepping up to claim their place. The betting odds were surprisingly close. Vegas actually had Roman as only a slight favorite, testament to how much respect Bronn Breaker had earned in such a short time. Wrestling analysts were divided. Some predicted a Roman victory through experience and cunning. Others thought Bronn's power and intensity would be too much for even the tribal chief to handle. The debate raged on every podcast, every YouTube channel, every social media platform. And through it all, both men maintained their positions. Roman exuded confidence, the aura of someone who'd been in this position 100 times and always emerged victorious. Bron radiated intensity, the energy of someone who'd been waiting their entire life for this moment and wasn't going to let it slip away. December 31st, 2025 arrived. The arena was absolutely packed, a sellout crowd that had been building anticipation for 3 weeks. The energy was electric from the moment doors opened. Fans arrived wearing tribal chief shirts and Bronn Breaker merchandise in equal measure. Signs supporting both men filled the arena. This wasn't just a match, this was an event. This was history in the making. The show leading up to the main event was solid, but everyone knew what they were really there to see. Every other match felt like filler, countdown to the main event. Social media was blowing up with predictions, with fans arguing about who would win, with celebrities chiming in on who they supported. The anticipation built with each passing minute, each segment bringing us closer to the collision everyone had been waiting for. Backstage, both men were in their respective locker rooms, going through final preparations. Reports from people who were there painted two very different pictures. Roman was calm, methodical, going through his usual pre-match routine with the bloodline around him, though notably, for this match, Roman had insisted they stay backstage. This was personal. This was one-on-one. No interference, no backup, just pure competition. Bronn Breaker, on the other hand, was pacing like a caged animal. His energy was almost manic, adrenaline clearly pumping through his system. This was the biggest match of his career, the opportunity to prove everything he'd been saying for weeks. Some backstage personnel reported that Bronn looked almost too amped up, too emotional. But others recognized it for what it was, the intensity of a competitor who was about to leave everything in that ring. The moment finally arrived. 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Main event time. The crowd was on their feet before anyone's music even hit. Michael Cole and Corey Graves at commentary were building the tension, running through the stakes one more time, making sure everyone understood the magnitude of what we were about to witness. And then, Bronn Breaker's music hit first. The young powerhouse made his entrance with a focus and determination that was palpable even through television screens. No theatrics, no playing to the crowd, just walking to that ring like a man on a mission. He climbed through the ropes and went straight to his corner, rolling his shoulders, staring at the entrance ramp, waiting for his opponent. The arena lights dimmed. The familiar sound of Roman Reigns' entrance music began. And the tribal chief made his walk to the ring with all the confidence of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. But there was something different about his entrance that night, an edge of respect, maybe, or acknowledgement that this wasn't just another match. Roman knew Bronn Breaker was a legitimate threat, and his entire demeanor showed that he was taking this absolutely seriously. Roman entered the ring, and for a moment, the two men stood on opposite sides, staring across at each other. The referee, Charles Robinson, one of WWE's most experienced officials, chosen specifically for this high-profile match, called both men to the center of the ring for final instructions. Roman and Bron stood face to face, neither breaking eye contact, neither showing any sign of intimidation. The contrast was striking. Roman, the established star with years of dominance behind him, Bron, the rising force with everything still to prove. The referee finished his instructions and backed away. The ring announcer, Mike Rome, delivered the formal introductions, his voice booming through the arena as he announced first the challenger, then the tribal chief. The crowd was split, dueling chants of Roman Reigns and Bronn Breaker, creating a sound that was almost overwhelming. The bell rang, and what happened next would be talked about for years to come. The moment that bell rang, Bronn Breaker exploded out of his corner like he'd been shot from a cannon. No feeling out process. No circling to gauge distance and timing. Just pure, immediate aggression that caught even Roman Reigns, a veteran of countless main events, slightly off guard. Breaker closed the distance in 2 massive strides and absolutely leveled Roman with a clothesline that echoed through the arena like a gunshot. The crowd erupted. This was exactly what Bron's supporters had been hoping for: immediate intensity, establishing dominance from the opening bell, showing Roman that this wasn't going to be business as usual. Breaker didn't give Roman time to recover. He grabbed the tribal chief by his vest and launched him into the corner with a force that shook the ring posts. Roman's back hit the turnbuckles hard, and before he could even register the impact, Bron was charging in with a massive splash that crushed the air from his lungs. But here's what made this opening sequence so impressive: it wasn't just power. It was controlled power. Bron wasn't wildly swinging and hoping to connect. Every move was precise, purposeful, part of a strategy to overwhelm Roman before the veteran could implement his own game plan. This was the kind of performance that showed Bronn Breaker had studied Roman's matches, understood his tendencies, and had come prepared with a specific approach. Bron pulled Roman out of the corner and absolutely destroyed him with a belly-to-belly suplex that sent the tribal chief flying across the ring. The impact was so severe that Roman rolled completely through and nearly slid under the bottom rope. The crowd was going absolutely insane. In less than 2 minutes, Bronn Breaker was making Roman Reigns, the man who dominated WWE for years, look mortal, look vulnerable, look like someone who might actually lose. Michael Cole's commentary captured the shock perfectly. "Oh my God. Bronn Breaker is absolutely mauling the tribal chief. I've never seen Roman Reigns handled this way." Corey Graves added, "This is exactly what Bron promised he would do, bring a level of intensity and power that Roman hasn't faced before." Roman tried to create some distance, rolling to the outside to collect himself and slow down Breaker's momentum. Classic veteran tactic: when you're getting overwhelmed, change the environment, break the rhythm, force a reset. But Bron wasn't about to let Roman have that breathing room. The young powerhouse hit the ropes and launched himself through the middle and bottom rope with a suicide dive that caught Roman perfectly, driving both men into the barricade with a crash that made fans in the front row jump back. The referee's count was at 3, but neither man seemed to care about potential countouts. This match had already evolved beyond normal rules and regulations. This was about proving superiority, and that couldn't be accomplished by winning by a countout. Bron pulled himself up first, grabbed Roman by his hair, drawing a warning from the referee, and bounced his head off the announce table. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact punctuated by the crowd counting along. Then Bron did something that showed just how confident he was feeling. He cleared off the announce table, monitors went flying, headsets were tossed aside, and lifted Roman up for what looked like a massive powerbomb through the table. The crowd rose to their feet in anticipation. This kind of spot usually doesn't happen until much later in big matches, but Bron was going for the kill early, looking to make an unforgettable statement. But this is where Roman's experience came into play. As Bron lifted him up, Roman fought back with desperate punches to the top of Bron's head. The grip loosened. Roman shifted his weight, slipping down behind Breaker and shoved him hard into the ring post. The metallic clang of skull meeting steel echoed through the arena, and for the first time in this match, Bronn Breaker looked hurt. Roman didn't waste the opportunity. Years of instinct took over, and the tribal chief immediately went on the attack, driving Bronn's head into the ring apron, then the steel steps, methodically taking control of the match's tempo. This was vintage Roman Reigns. Once he found an opening, he exploited it ruthlessly. A series of precise strikes targeted Bronn's head, trying to rattle him, trying to slow down the freight train that had been running him over for the first 5 minutes. The referee's count was at 7 when Roman finally threw Bron back into the ring and followed him in. Roman's vest was torn, his hair disheveled. Bron's early onslaught had definitely done damage, but the tribal chief was back in control now. He stood over Breaker, took a moment to compose himself, then began delivering methodical stomps to Bronn's body. This was a different kind of offense from Bronn's explosive power. This was surgical, calculated, designed to break down an opponent piece by piece. Roman pulled Bron up and absolutely drilled him with a massive uppercut that snapped Breaker's head back. Then another. And another.